hold on, I have to check. Okay, yes, we are live. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot and very happy to be here today. So I have Brad Olsen with me, and Brad is a good old friend, and he's also a wonderful colleague, prolific writer, incredible, and a publisher of other people's books, as it turns out. So, Brad, can you give yourself a background? He's also a world explorer, has been to Antarctica, where a lot of us have not been. And so go ahead.
Hey, Carrie. Good to see you again. Thanks for having me on Project Camelot. Boy, what an esteemed platform you have here, and always so good to connect with you on all the weird and wonderful and ET related stuff going on in the world. We've got a great show lined up today. But you kind of nailed it in a summation. Author of 10 books, a couple more on the way. Publisher of books by Laura Eisenhower, Michael Jaco, Leo Lyons-Zagami, and many others. You can go to cccpublishing.com to check out my books and all of those. And if people order one of my books off the website, you get a signed copy. So, and Beyond Esoteric, my latest book, was endorsed and written a blurb by Carrie Cassidy. So, and you got a great book there behind you too. I love The Rebel Gene. We're both big in books and publishing. And I guess the other last thing to say, yeah, you nailed it. I've traveled all 7 continents. I was down in Antarctica 5.5 years ago. Going to be my 11th book when I get it done, probably in a year from now.
Wow.
And yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff down there. You'd be amazed. It can fill a whole book with interesting and new information. So yeah, just
Okay, well, so you're writing a book in Antarctica?
yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, you're a great synthesizer, I think, of information, gathering it all together, putting it in one place, making sense out of it, and so on. So that's a skill, and even a kind of a art or craft form, and lots of us, I think, value that. So in terms of where we're at now and how crazy things are, so what's your take on everything? Let's start with that.
Well, you and I we text back and forth sometimes. You had some really great slides. We were able to show them about what this sky event is supposed to be happening. And I thought it just so very interesting that the Vatican does a press conference about 2 weeks ago. I think it's to get in front of the 8 ball here and be ahead of the story on this. If this sky event is to happen, and we got so many data points showing that looks like something big is coming down the pike here. But the fact that the Vatican makes this announcement and they're distinguishing between supernatural phenomenon, aka aliens, and apparitions, which they have their exorcists going around and extracting demons from people. But the thing is, Carrie, I mean, we both know the Vatican, they hold their chest cards really tight to the chest. They protect their most precious secrets. So why are they doing a press conference, the second one on UFOs and mysteries since 1978? Why are they doing it now? What is so prescient about this time to come out? And the Pope, for example, said in the end of 2023, alluding to the fact that aliens can be baptized. That just seems like such a ludicrous statement. His actual quote is pretty interesting. He says, "Tomorrow, an expedition of Martians came, and some of them came to us. Here, Martians, right? Green with that long nose and big ears, just like children paint them. And one says, but I want to be baptized. What would happen? It was never the ministry of the closed door. Never. So is he saying that's an open door to aliens?
Okay, but this is something you read on their website or something?
This was based on a Zero Hedge article that they were talking about this press conference coming up and basically asking the same question. Why now? Why is this so important for the Vatican to be making this distinction? Plus, they're throwing their weight behind a new movie that's coming out at the Cannes Film Festival this summer called God vs. Aliens. And it's going to reveal the Vatican's secrets about UFOs. So again,
Really? Okay,
why does
well,
the church have anything to do in this subject?
that's really bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I have a whole theory on what might transpire. So I am interested in hearing what you're thinking. I mean, I hear you're seeing information out there. Now, I don't think you're not subscribed to, I don't know, the future forecasting group. And so you didn't necessarily see their videos about the subject that we're going to talk about here. But you might have seen Cliff High's presentation. And there was a YouTube video that was sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, dumbed down or cleansed by the future forecasting group that didn't show all of their data. So I don't know if they think their data is too scary or they want to keep it proprietary. And, I have some issues with that notion, especially when it's a worldwide event that could affect everyone. So, yes, if you were just Joe Blow and you wanted to put it out there, well, that'd be fine too. But yeah, when you're a well-known remote viewer and you've worked for the government and you probably are still under the government's thumb, maybe the way these people get to be, and they get, I think they get notified as to what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say, and that I think colors the message coming out. But
Yeah.
they're, at least they put it out there. They've done their efforts, and I think that Dick Algeier, I think he was on Nino's show, and I think he's been on a few other shows, maybe talking about this now.
Yep.
So so that's honorable to a degree, and I think that we can extrapolate from here. So there's a lot of different nuances to the story. So I'm just curious, did you watch the Cliff High, the spike?
Yes.
You saw the data and how he looks at it. Now, again, for the audience's point of view, this data is supposedly aggregated by Cliff High and put into sort of data buckets, under topics or whatever. Like one topic he calls woo. And I think this might have gone under that bucket, but I'm not sure. And then he cross correlates it, he interprets it, and that's where the human, you could say where the human could make a mistake, have a different emphasis, whatever it is. And so he colors it with his own filter of himself. And he puts it out there trying to be probably as objective as he can. He's kind of like that kind of guy. And so what, when you look at the data, you can't argue with it. He's gathered it from the internet. He's gathered it from our talk that, like prior to 9/11, contains messages and information that means that we actually, whether we know it or not, we're precogs. And that's the premise of actually his webbot.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what do you say? What do you say to what you saw?
Yeah, it's a form of predictive analytics. So he's getting the language that people are using with his web bots and aggregating it into a picture of what is to come. And this is similar to, as you mentioned, 9/11, where a lot of people were feeling agitated or were typing words in that were kind of nonsensical before the event, but after it happened, you could see that they were picking up on it. It's like our collective subconscious that can tell when a big major event is going to happen here on Earth. And Cliff High, I mean, the guy is brilliant. He's done so much and all these patents under his belt. So to come out with this prediction that a big sky event is going to occur this month, next week. And you and I are both traveling cross country to be at conferences. I hope we don't get stuck where we're going because
Yeah, that's I was thinking. But I have had a precog dream, I get dreams of the future. So at least, unless I misinterpret my dream, that's always a possibility. What I see is that this is not going to happen when it's slated to happen, okay? And that it's going to happen a few days later. Like I arrive home on the 18th. And when I'm arriving home, my dream was that I was joking with my friend that uh, here we are. Now we're just in time for the earthquake. That's what I said to him in the dream. Now, but I was sort of joking. So I can't interpret that as a real, and I didn't have a dream of an earthquake. So I think maybe I was telling myself that I'm going to make it back before whatever this event is and making a joke that it might be an earthquake. Now, according to my investigations and my cross correlating information that has come out again from the remote viewers, from my stuff that I've gotten, and I'm going to explain that too here, but also from obviously from Cliff High, and watched all his videos. So he did a few videos. I don't usually watch his videos, but these were on the Future Forecasting website that he did a video with Dick Allgaier on that, so that it's not open to the public. You can pay to see it. It's $45 a month, but then you can actually subscribe and pay 1 month or something, and then you can get out of the subscription and cancel, and then you won't have to keep paying unless you want to keep paying, of course. And they recommend that you actually do that. They don't have a problem with you subscribing for 1 month and then backing out. So the idea here is that there are several videos. They've also done a couple videos on their own. So they do one where they give all their data, and these are just to clarify again for the audience, 6 of the most highly respected, I think you'd say, remote viewers who, again, several of them, I don't know that all of them, but I know that several of them have worked for the military, okay, the US military in the past. And that you can kind of figure out that from what you would like. Now, again, sort of laying the groundwork here. So have you had any of your own, thoughts in this area that, I don't know that you consider yourself a precog, even though all of us are, even according to Cliff's data, but not a lot of people have actualized that part of their personality, so on and so forth. So I don't want to put you on the spot if you're uncomfortable, but I'd love to have you give me, your take if you have one.
Yeah. Well, sure. And I agree with you. We're all a bit empathic, and we do have precog abilities. Some call it the sixth sense that
Sure.
we are able to look a little bit into the future. And that's maybe why we don't see as many catastrophic car accidents. You just have a split second to make that change and thread the needle sometimes. But my field of research in my book, Beyond Esoteric, I do get into the whole description of what Project Bluebeam was and is supposed to be. And a lot of this sky event, especially what these remote viewers have demonstrated and written down and even drew pictures of, it wasn't what they thought it would be. Dick Allgaier saying maybe it's a missile attack. It's maybe some kind of military operation up in the sky. But then when it comes into what they're picking up, they're seeing the UFO crafts, and they're seeing some kind of War of the World scenario. And that's exactly what Project Bluebeam is. So there's an old video of a CIA guy who came out, way back in the late 1980s. I can't remember his name, but he had that real scratchy voice. I think he's passed away since. I'm sitting in the playground here and I see the kids playing on the gym set, and I just want to tell them what's going to come down the pike for them. And he did predict a lot of things, such as, that and the other things that came along with that. But he said that Project Bluebeam was slated for 2024. And when you think about how important this year is, especially now with that disaster of a debate and the
Yeah.
Democratic Party just reeling at the moment, I mean, they're in a very desperate situation. And so you also have Werner von Braun, the paperclip Nazi, who comes over here and gets a U.S. citizenship and starts NASA and has a change of heart later in life and wants to warn the world. And he told his assistant, Carol Rosen, that the last card the cabal will play will be to do Project Bluebeam and to trick the world into thinking we need this one world government to basically get us through this. Now, Randy Kramer, who I know pretty well from conferences, he used to advocate for Project Bluebeam. I said, Randy, what are you talking about? How could this be a good thing, a mass deception on the scale? And he says, the military needs it because they need to roll out all their high-tech hardware that they have kept bottled up. So then they could show it in the sky, the TR-3Bs flying around, even though that's old technology at this point. But maybe have this fake sky show just so then they could say, hey, look, we saved it for a good reason to fight off these aliens. And now here it is. We can admit we have all this stuff.
Right. And I know Randy Kramer as well. And I've said this many times, but we were both at a conference. It was actually 4 years ago now, near Yelm, Washington. We were both speakers. He came on stage with his Marine handler, and he's currently still a Marine, in case people don't realize this. And he has been working, for the secret space program, going on Moon and Mars and doing operations there, killing certain aliens, insectoids to be
Yep.
specific, and so on. And he's been, I interviewed him years ago on this subject, and he's also done, I think, a lot of interviews on that subject. And he also is talking about this Project Bluebeam, as you're saying, but they're advocating for it. But there's more to the story on why they're advocating for it. So one of the things is that they intend to have disclosure, but before they do that, they want to show people that they are in charge. And so they want to battle aliens for us, and it's mainly going to be CGI on a television, right? Although he did say, and I'm bad with numbers, but I think he did say there will be collateral damage, and there will be like something like 100,000 people die in these battles, so-called battles. So they're not so fake, actually. And so then what we're having is we're going to have a fake alien invasion that is depicted on our televisions, getting people up to speed on what we have and how our secret space program has been moving along, because they're like hundreds of years ahead of us on surface Earth right now, actually. And then after that, they plan to disclose that it's a real alien invasion and follow up with that. So there's steps. And I even ran this by Captain Mark Richards, and he said it's a good idea. And he's a military guy.
To
So,
roll out the hardware
there's
like
a,
that? Yep.
sorry?
To roll out the hardware in a fake alien invasion, even though there would be
To
collateral
do
damage.
all of this, just
Yeah.
as I'm saying. So
Yeah.
not just fake, but real. In other words, because there are a lot of aliens, and he's talked about this in the interviews I've done with him, where they say there are a lot of aliens that really want to get done with the secrecy. They want to interact with humanity. They are coming here, and some come like to places like Pine Gap and do vacations and have fun. They don't want to, they actually want to do business with us. There's these dog alien beings that are like entrepreneur type beings, and all kinds of things. So they want us to be open and aware. And then is the dark side, and there are some of the dark side want disclosure and some don't. So it's a mixed bag. That's what we're dealing with. But when we come to this event, it does smack of Bluebeam to me. And when I looked at the data of the remote viewers, even though it's extremely widely dispersed, there are some very critical areas that they all came together on. One is there's a UFO involved. There could
Yeah.
be more than one UFO, because just because you say there's a UFO doesn't mean there aren't several. Um, and then another thing is that NORAD is involved. And another thing is that there was planning, pre-planning. So this is not a natural event. They do say, I think one or two of them said it might look natural, but it's not natural.
Right.
And so we've got these other things. And we've also got a sign of something hitting the earth. So there's a hit on the earth. And even at one point, one of the viewers, I believe, said there would be like these projectiles hitting the earth. So I kind of conjectured that it might be along the lines of an intro to Project Bluebeam, that you're going to see a UFO shoot a target, and it's going to come from the UFO, and you're going to actually see them shoot a ground target. Now, the target could be a military base. Some of the people said there was a building hit, that kind of thing. So, and then again, NORAD. And then they sort of tend to focus it on the West Coast. However, several of the people emphasizing NORAD would say it's Colorado is the target. So, you know, again, you have to mix and match, and nothing is absolutely clear. Nothing is completely straightforward, even in all the different viewings, even when you compare and contrast. So, but Cliff High has also participated, like I said, in an interview with Dick Agar, who's arguably might be the sort of leader of future forecasting group. And several of these members also used to work with another guy called Courtney Brown back in the day. And they no longer work with him, but just saying that because I remote view the remote viewers data. I talk about this. I just talked about it on another show yesterday, I think it was. But anyway, just saying, I find it a good exercise for my own skills to see what I come up with and whether I think they're right on, they're missing the target, this and that and the other. Okay. So I think it's a really good exercise for anyone who's interested in doing that. But the drawings are quite clear. I mean, a UFO drawing, no doubt about it. Men around a table planning some devious event, some multiple planes in the sky. There's a lot of, sky data. So I think that's very interesting. And then strangely, I don't know if you picked up on this, but I did. So when Cliff High did his speech, he talking about his data, right? And you can see the video, so you can verify this. At a certain point, after he put out all the data, he goes, it's going to be there's something financial about it. But there's no data, not even in the viewers stuff, that supports anything financial. So I'm just going to throw that out there and say that was like a false lead that he threw out there, maybe for people. Because, nobody wants to take it sort of credit for predicting something dire, of course. And I'm not actually sure that people are going to die as a result of this event. But the one thing they were all in agreement of, they labeled their video world-changing event. And they all seem to say that it's something that people are going to be talking about way into 2025. It's going to change consciousness on the world stage. And when you put those together, see, we've all heard reports of UFOs forever. What we haven't heard is reports of a UFO actually targeting something in the United States and, demolishing it. So a shoot, that was like the Battle of LA is probably the last time anything like that was reported legitimately before the public, So, I hear this all the time, but that's another matter. So this is what's really interesting to me, is that it's going to be this wow factor.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can get away with saying that, and then also having the corroboration of the remote viewers all coming with that data point together. And, it can't be anticlimactic and not be a wow factor. And in fact, Cliff High himself, I believe, said, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you might have seen it as well. Someone told me, again, I'm bad with numbers, but they said it was like 13 times larger than 9/11. That's the data point, that it's a spike that's 13 times higher.
Right.
So that's insane. I
Yeah.
mean, right off the bat. So, and then there's this interesting thing. So it's supposed to be the 15th going into the 16th is how it works, July, which is next week or at the end of this week, whatever you want to say.
Incidentally.
Yeah, because I fly out on the 14th, which is Sunday. So I guess it's next week, technically. So, if it really was to happen on schedule, it's extremely soon. And again, it'll have to have these ingredients, in part because these remote viewers, aside from Cliff High, who has very accurate data, and according to the interview I heard with Dick Agar, Dick said his data on 9/11 was accurate. So he's not, sort of alone in this situation, where he has also in the past, his data has accurately predicted the future. Okay. So that's something worth paying attention. And then the other thing worth paying attention is that these remote viewers are also dead on all the time. And they have, viewing after viewing, and they do this on a regular basis. And in some cases, they remote view the path of cryptocurrency. That's one of their skill sets at this point. But they also do events and various things and so on. So accuracy is very important in this sort of milieu that we're discussing, right? So what do you think? Again, I'm sort of asking you, are you on board with thinking it's a sky event? Would you go that far or not, or what?
Yeah, I'm on board with the sky event. And that's kind of a pretty open term what that could be.
Sure.
And the other thing with Cliff High's prediction with the financial crash, any event of this magnitude, say, for example, 9/11 or the start of the Gulf War, you're going to have the markets in turmoil. That's just a natural outcome from it. But it will certainly be overshadowed by this sky event. It'll be things we've never seen before. And I would also interject that the mainstream media has been getting involved, getting ahead of this story by doing their own predictive programming. Remember,
Really?
just
Like what?
well, a year
I'm not
ago
aware.
last
I don't follow them. So what are you seeing?
well, a year ago last May, Lester Holt comes on NBC Nightly News primetime and said the Pentagon has just released a report that there's a massive mothership in our solar system parked out there by Jupiter. And
Really?
apparently people have been picking it up on telescopes, and it's still there. Now, why this isn't the biggest news story in the history of humanity that we're still talking about and trying to deconstruct, but it was a one-off. It was a one and done. He just spoke about it that one time in May 2020,
Right.
and it was gone. And then, of course, you've got David Grush coming on the
Yes.
congressional testimony. That went mainstream. And before that, you have the TikTok video, the military now making their own admissions that this is a very real phenomenon. So it's getting into the minds of the mass public. We're starting to be conditioned to the whole idea. And this is what predictive programming is all about. I think it's a setup for the great deception of Bluebeam. It's just getting people's minds accustomed to the idea that aliens not only have been coming to Earth for a very, very long time, but could be coming here. And boy, what if they are going to attack? And, another interesting thing Randy Kramer said is that they had negotiated with the insectoids that they would be the aliens in the attack, and they would be willing to dispose of thousands of insectoid creatures who are all hive mind and pretty much just
Yeah,
follow
that's
the
interesting because I guessed that, and I
Oh,
was there at the conference. Even
yeah.
then, I guessed that. And one of the things I said to Randy, which drove him absolutely crazy, is that I said, "How are you going to have a fake alien invasion when the real one's going on?" And
Right.
he came stomping off the stage like he was going to beat me up. And he stopped just shy of me, gathered himself, and didn't beat me up. But it's all on film. But of course, that film was never released. Of the entire conference, wasn't the footage wasn't
Wow.
released, but especially that. And so, we parted as friends and everything, but he was not thrilled with my input put at the time.
Hmm.
So just let me tell you why it's going to be insectoids, actually, if it
Okay.
is. Now, there's no guarantee. Of course, they can change their scenario because they're going to be holograms, a lot of holograms going on,
Sure.
CGI and so on and so forth. But I can tell you that Halo and Ready Player One and all of these kids games and books that have come out in the last, I don't even want to say 10 years, are all about kids fighting mostly insectoids of some kind out in the solar system. That's what the stories are about. I don't know if you read them. I have. So, and there are games, of course, built around these premises, and they're hugely popular. Of course, of Halo, right?
More predictive programming.
Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that they would be doing because they've already been preparing their audience. Okay. And especially their young audience. Okay. So these are the kinds of things we look for in any coming event, especially because, again, pre-planning is involved. This UFO is going to be ours. Okay. Or it'll be one that we drive that belongs to the aliens, however they decide to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there could be several involved. In fact, some you see, some you don't, because they have a cloaking capability, as you know. Now, let me tell you a little thing that happened to me, and I think I've already related it online, but I'll say it again here because I'd like to get your reaction. But
Sure.
what happened was I was in San Diego over the 4th of July visiting all the ships. It's called the MS Midway, and there's some pirate ships and stuff like that there, which is really fun. So I had a friend call me up who's a military guy who actually lives in the San Diego area. He got a call from somebody who was somewhere on the water down by the beach and said there was a whole group of people down there who were claiming right then and there that they saw a UFO land on a ship in San Diego Harbor that
Wow.
day. Okay. And this day was, I think it was Sunday. So, I mean, how insane is that? Because it looks like a precursor event to the event, right? At least in my mind, to what a foreshadowing of what might be to come. So just throwing that out there, it's kind of amazing that I was down there in person. I didn't get to interview anybody over it, but my source is a very dependable military guy, and he's not going to be messing about. So this is the kind of thing we've got going on. And, you've been following this sector for all these years, right?
Yeah.
And writing about it and so on and so forth. And certainly the Vatican is going to try to have a hand in it. No doubt about that.
No doubt.
And what can I say? I think there will be a lot of deception at that end. Other things that you might have come across or might have crossed your mind in regard to this kind of thing.
Sure. Well, again, back to this press conference of the Vatican, they're clearly saying that they believe that ET life exists. If the Pope's going to come out and infer
They've
that
said that before, though. You do know.
they have, but it's seemingly reaching a fervid pitch here because they plan to develop a positive relation with ET contact. They plan to make contact and be at the forefront of those who are prepared to speak on behalf of humanity and maybe even baptize them. They're just getting ahead of the story. This is just predictive programming because nothing that comes out of the Vatican press release isn't very carefully designed and scripted and a deliberate course of action that they want to take. This is not just oh, wow, why did they do that? No, there's something behind it. And I think they know what's coming and they put
Yes.
money into these
And I have to
programs
say
too.
that I actually think the White Hats know what's coming because Juan O'Savin has
Yep.
been talking about this event
Yep.
coming up. He didn't have dates, but he had a sort of a range of, the closer we've been getting, the more he's been talking about it, sort of saying, well, it's coming up, it's really going to happen soon, or whatever kind of thing. He hasn't given anyone really that much clue as to what the event was. And I don't even know if this event is his exact event. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like there could be a series of ones that we don't know about coming along the pike. But I can say that he just did a recent interview with Nino on this subject. more or less. And he seemed to be focusing in on the cliff high data this time around. So for what it's worth, I'm just saying that he's another person who has been talking about an event. He thinks it's world changing as well. He's talked about that wow effect. He seemed to think that you also needed to store things like food and water in the event. I don't know what's going to happen. So this is not clear. And there's also this idea that it might interrupt the election in some form or fashion. And in what way would that be? Because one has to extrapolate, something happen, even if it was a sky event, even if it was a targeting, a la Lahaina, right? Mm-hmm. And arguably some of the hits on Lahaina could have been from UFOs, by the way. And so, but this is going to be in your face and people are going to become aware of it. There, he says, and as Cliff does, and I think the viewers are kind of saying, because they showed this picture of the nervous system of a human, that going down the backbone and stuff like that. One of the drawings, and they're saying it's going to affect the nervous system of humans in such a way. So personally, I think that's a little airy fairy. I think that but that's me, because you understand that I have had this knowledge going back right over 19 years. So to me, it's like ho hum, yeah, like right. But the thing is that for people that are shocked, when you're in a state of shock, you're very open to suggestion, right, to even like what you might say is strange behaviors. Even he was even saying, this is what Juan was saying, out of body actions. So where people might leave their bodies, they're so shocked. Now, I find that hard to believe, but it's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible, because even back in the day when they did this broadcast, do you remember the broadcast with what's this famous actor, Orson Welles?
Oh, the War of the Worlds.
That was many, many years ago. Okay. Yeah. And they predicted that people would kind of lose it. And back in those days, they kind of did. Okay. They did. Yeah. But now we have had predictive programming, starting with even Spielberg and all his movies and Battlestar Galactica, you name it. Kids now are very well prepared. So I don't think so much that this exact event is going to drive them, out of their minds. But there's, if you start seeing insectoids walking around and they're huge, I'm just saying, I don't like bugs anyway. So
especially huge, bigger than you are.
Yeah. So if that becomes an issue, and if some of them actually are real, and stuff like that, then we've got a whole nother ball game going on. And I know that people, let me say that this thing about Camelot. So we were told when we first started that this slew of events would be happening. And they did say that there would be, in essence, the Project Bluebeam and the disclosure of alien presence would be part of and parcel of what was coming out around this exact same time. And they'd all come out together. And in fact, they're late. Okay. So initially they were supposed to do some of this stuff even as much as 5 or 10 years ago, but it's been delayed for various reasons. Maybe they chose to do it that way. Maybe there was enough interference where they couldn't do some of the things they wanted to do, but we're there now. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, here we are. And, it is kind of, let me just say that it could be a wartime scenario. So we were told that first we would battle Iran and China, and that it would be on the table, and that it's an agreed upon war. It's an exercise, in essence, for our secret space program and our space program to put their weapons out there in those kind of battles, albeit perhaps still being somewhat cloaked. Okay, which means clones, which means drones. And I saw 4th of July display in Laguna Beach that was all done by drones in the sky. Oh, wow. We're going to release a video of it. That was first I heard about it. I thought, well, that sounds really boring. but it wasn't anything but boring. And it was actually hits home as to how dangerous, flocks of drones could be,
Yeah.
and so that was very interesting. And maybe a foreshadowing again in Laguna Beach for a select audience to see what their reactions would be, right?
Yeah, good point. And Juan has been on the record saying he does not think the election's going to occur.
That's
And
true.
we're less than 4 months away. So this is such a critical window right now because they know if Trump gets in, it's game over for the cabal. So they're going to try everything, every trick in the book they got in these next 4 months. So to do this alien invasion, and just to go back to the War of the Worlds, so this was an Orson Welles radio broadcast, and he made it sound very realistic, like it was a news break that incidentally insectoid aliens coming out of a craft in New Jersey. People believed it. People did jump out of windows and get in their car, and they were panicking. We live on a planet that emanates fear. That's kind of one
Yeah.
of the telltale signs of planet Earth, especially with humanity. And we're very superstitious. We believe this stuff. We're still locked in a box of these beliefs. That's why so many people have a hard time following even the most basic of alien narratives. They just don't want to go that way. And so when you have this fear factor so high, and it was the Brookings Institute on Long Island that did the study after the War of the Worlds and said they use it as a justification saying we can't release alien information or ET contact with our military or government because look what happened with War of the Worlds. People will jump out of windows. But like you
Yeah.
said, Gary, we're conditioned to that now. I think we can handle the truth.
Yeah.
And
I would say so. I mean, and you can, I think it's fair enough to credit the movie and television industry with a lot of the breaking of the ice in that direction. And that's why kids will kind of take it for granted on some level. I don't know about adults as much, but I'm sure that there are plenty of people like me that are fans of Battlestar Galactica and other stuff. But I mean, Camelot, we've also done our piece and you've done your piece. So I've been pumping out this data with whistleblower testimony from military people for close to 20 years now. So I have gotten nothing but emails from all over the world telling me, thank you, you woke me up. Now I'm on base, with all of this. And even people that I guess didn't like my material in the beginning have written to me apologizing and saying now they understand.
you've been vindicated, Carrie.
All
You sure have.
right, fair
I've
enough.
often said many times, you're doing invaluable work here, service to humanity.
Well, I'm on the
Help us
team.
understand. You're
I
on the team.
consider
So
we're
am
on the
I.
team together. So I don't sort of see us in an isolated picture. But I think it's so important to look at what we're dealing with right now. And I don't know where it's all going to go. I think that the wow factor is one thing that I think might be, if you want to wake people up, a sudden wake up event is kind of in some ways might be the way to do it, right? And in this has to be wow, like wow.
Yeah.
It can't
Mind blowing.
be,
Yeah.
otherwise it would fizzle out and it'll go nowhere. Like, okay, we had aliens at a mall down in Florida, supposedly, which I actually think were the tall whites helping out.
Right.
That were in Vegas as well, and down in I think it was Peru. And
Yep.
I've interviewed certain witnesses who won't even come forward. So they came forward to me on a private basis with a couple other people, but they haven't come forward with their testimony. So there's still a lot of fear out there, even the ones that have had the direct experiences. They don't want to be stigmatized. They don't want to be, you know, accosted, I guess, by people in the street. They don't want to be, and there's a lot of religious people that are actually kind of out of their minds and wanting to attack people that do talk about this kind of thing. Even one himself has told me to my face, as well as Simon Parks, for example, who has had a lot of alien contact.
With
Uh,
insectoids
don't
too.
talk don't talk about the alien card. He's
Right.
literally said that to us, So so there's that sort of an impasse that could be actually overcome maybe once and for all. Maybe. We'll see what the fallout is. We'll see where it goes. We'll see if it's actually going to be this kind of thing. But I don't think you can ignore it. When you put all these elements together, it really does point in this direction.
Yeah, it does.
So I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how it plays out. Um, so any other things you want to contribute, and also anything else you're doing currently, just to share with us?
Sure. Well, just a little bit more on the religious angle in this Vatican press conference. This is the revelation of the method. This is the salvation from above, because part of Bluebeam is after the war takes place and we seem to be the victors and people are at maximum fear factor and their whole illusion of spirituality or religion perhaps has been shattered. Another aspect of Project Bluebeam is the Messiah appears. The Messiah appears in the Western world as Jesus. Mohammed
The
in the
Antichrist.
Far East. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's all
that's
going
a
to be
big thing.
fake anyways, but here we are
Yeah.
calling it way ahead of time. If the Messiah appears in the sky and his lips are moving, they can use voice to skull technology to put those words into people's brain.
Absolutely.
I mean, it could be very realistic. Just
Yeah, I
like,
mean, all of this can. I mean, John Lear attended a conference. This is quite a while ago, and he said there was a guy speaking on the stage who did a whole presentation and then started walking down the aisle, and he looked human in every way, and the whole audience saw him and everything. And partway down the aisle, he stopped, and then I think he blinked out, and it was a hologram. So there
wow.
is, they can make and this goes back years. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
I had the same story with a guy named Norm Bergram, who I interviewed, who wrote a book, The Ringmakers of Saturn, which you can get freely on the internet, who also claimed to have seen a lifelike hologram, which was a precursor of the 9/11 planes in the buildings, because it was a low flying plane that just skimmed over one of the overpasses in the Silicon Valley, Palo Alto area. And he happened to be there, I think, in a standing like on the ground watching this, and seeing the plane come very low over, and then all of a sudden the plane blinked out, and he realized he'd been watching a hologram, and yet it was extremely real. So he became very clued in, and actually he's the one who told John Lear
Yeah.
about this phenomena, and the skill that's gone into this now over the years, and that people don't realize how far along they really are.
And look, Michael Jackson will be going on tour as a hologram. Tupac Shakur already did it. You wouldn't know the difference, just like at the conference when that figure
Yes.
flipped out. Look, Werner von Braun, he talked about this in the 1970s, so it must have already been pretty advanced at that time. And we know
Yes.
how much pre-planning went into 9/11 as well. So of course they're going to be working this for not years, but for decades. So then when you put in this religious element of the Messiah in the sky. And I'm sure they know, the human mind being as superstition as it is, that humans have a psychological need for a savior, especially during times of distress. So after the cloud of war clears, then the Messiah shows up. And this is all going to be pre-planned. When people look skyward for divine intervention, then this is where this press conference from the Vatican really starts to make a lot of sense, that they're getting themselves in the position that their doctrine of faith will, we've already talked about the difference between supernatural phenomenon and apparitions. So they know that there is a time in the near future when these encounters are going to become very real, when they're going to become known to everybody. And what better way from a military aspect or from a religious aspect to retain their power to have this kind of sky show event take place? And
Right.
then
And there's
people are going to be
also,
clamoring for answers.
Well, there's also the aspect that has to do with the fact that reptilian ships will then come down and supposedly rescue the humans, but actually take them off planet and, dispose of them in various ways, which is through slave labor and killing and eating them, basically.
Don't
So
go.
that no, this is real. I mean, this is how they're actually operational now, and they have been coming in through a portal that goes to the Draco galaxy through CERN. This is all according to my witness, Captain Mark Richards. So this is what we're talking about. What this can reveal is the real truth about what's happening to humanity. But there's no doubt that certain people, especially the religious right, I think you would call them, they are very set in their ways, and they don't want to see the truth. They don't want anything other than, the conventional Bible story and apocalypse and all that. So this is where it all comes together. It's going to be interesting to see it play out, because we're also going to have Trump come back in power sometime during the fallout, you could say, of this situation. And Juan is not saying there won't be an election. He's saying it's going to be postponed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key element as well to keep in mind. How that's all going to play out, again, I can't say. It's anyone's guess, right? So, and we can see that the left is scrambling because their puppet Biden has fallen apart. That whole scenario, that whole storyline even has failed. I don't know if you know this, but there is documented evidence that what are the money people that support the Biden administration and even his run for the presidency have all withdrawn their money. So
Wow.
that's been documented, and that includes things like BlackRock and various other super wealthy individuals. So they are demanding that he step down. They're demanding that another person step forward. So we're going to see that drama play out as well.
Yeah, it's history in the making right now, Carrie. I mean, it couldn't have been a more interesting time to be alive. What's the old Chinese proverb? May you be born in interesting times. It's both a blessing and a curse.
Understatement of the year. Yeah.
And we're seeing it playing out in real time right now. And then, of course, these Supreme Court judgments that are going to affect Trump's court cases, but also the Chevron one, that they're taking power away from all these government agencies. So it does appear that the white hats are in control and are steering the narrative in this positive way. And I just hope if the cabal does try to pull off this Project Bluebeam, that they'll send a little monkey wrench into the whole thing and just make it real obvious that it glitches out as a hologram does, and that people won't panic and go to fear buying, and that
well, in part, and it may be why there's some disclosure on this level. However, I can say that this is a pure indication the white hats are not in control, because the dark hats are always going to do their damnedest to have, this roll out their things. So it's a little more like Juan says, which is they do something, we do something, they do something, we do something. So it is an ongoing battle, and I don't think it's over yet. I think we're definitely going to see many innings, if you will, probably going into the next few years, to where this thing is not going to be completely resolved. And I know that the Courtney Brown remote viewers actually did remote view after the election, and they saw whoever wins is going to be inundated by attacks. So just for what it's worth.
And this thing is going to carry on through the election cycle into the second term. Yep. So it's going to bog down any president. In fact, that's one
and they're gearing up to call him Hitler and all this kind of crazy stuff, so we've seen that already. Yeah, and it looks like the Vatican, based on what you're telling me, and I'll try to get a glimpse of that press conference because I haven't seen it. It was always predicted, in even Project Camelot in the early days, that when this happened, the Vatican wanted to take control and the lead on disclosure. And that's obvious. There's the reason behind it being that they want to own the spirituality, if you will, of humans, and keep steering it. But the Vatican is run by reptilians underground. And so this is why they want to own it, because if they control the spirituality of the people in massive numbers, then they can control the consciousness on earth. And I just wish that people would wake up and realize that religion is the opiate of the masses, and that they basically are under control. And those are fundamental control fabrics that have been permeating people's lives since they were born. So this is where it all goes. And so it's very important to realize they're not going to let go of control. So this battle is ongoing.
Oh, it is big time. I mean, just look at the audience hall and next to St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. It looks just like the head of a serpent.
Oh,
on
yeah,
the outside,
absolutely.
It's a snake head, and on the inside,
they don't even bother to hide.
They don't even hide it anymore. No, they don't. And just
really
a last thought about John Lear. He was on with Art Bell way back in the day, and it's called the John Lear test, because he positioned the question to Art Bell saying, look, if you were the president and you were briefed on an alien invasion or pre-knowledge of them coming here, and you had to make that announcement to the people, would you do it? And both Art Bell and John Lear said, no, I wouldn't, because it would bog down a presidency. So they already know that this is going to be a big thorny issue. So maybe to roll it out, like Randy Kramer says, in some kind of, hey, the military's here to save the day. Look at all this high-tech technology. It kind of makes sense that they would want to do it that way.
Yes, absolutely. They want to own the audience share. They want to basically, control the eyeballs, as they say in the media business, and they want to control the narrative. And by doing so, looking like the heroes, okay, even when that's a lie, they can't look as weak as they really are. And on certain levels, they have actually built up the secret space program to go mano with these various alien races. So the plan there is to explore the galaxies, conquer other planets, and for them to stay in charge no matter where they go. That's part of this, secret space program. That's the super soldier agenda, universal soldier, super soldier, and so on. So this is an ongoing story. Certain sectors not wanting to let go of their piece, that they control. And so we're going to see where this all leads. But it like you said, we're living in interesting times. And personally, I can't wait. I mean, I just like all this stuff to happen, because again, I live in this world anyway, every day, talking about it every day, as maybe you do as well.
It's getting a lot more interest. Let's put it that way. I think part of the Great Awakening is also coming to understand we're not alone. We've never been alone.
Right.
And what is their agenda? So the whole concept of exopolitics is starting to also come into the narrative. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. All right. Well, I guess we've gone on long enough. Want to keep this kind of short and sweet. Thank you for being my guest. Thank you for being, up to date on everything. And, it's fun to talk to you about all this as always.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. This is the zeitgeist of the times that we live in. It's just, you got to stay up on this stuff because it's happening now at breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure to speak with you, Carrie. Thanks for having me on. And
all right, now leave us with your URLs where people can reach you.
Sure. cccpublishing.com is the book publishing website. Sign copies by me if you order off my books off that site. And then bradolsen.com is my conference schedule and a bunch of other projects that I'm working on. So those are the
and you're about to speak at another conference. What conference are you at?
Yeah, I'm flying to Dallas on Friday to speak at the MUFON Symposium. So if this whole thing goes down, maybe that's a good crowd of people to be around to interpret what's going on. Right. And then the following weekend, I'm at the Mount Shasta Summer Conference. Tickets are still available. Use promo code Brad to get a discount. and hope to see you at a conference one of these days. I think we'll
Yeah,
be
I'm
together in
speaking in
Vegas.
Florida, like I said
Yeah.
during this. So I will be at the Full Disclosure Conference
Yep.
on from the 14th to the 18th of July. So during this time, I'm supposed to be, that's where I'm going to be, is Florida. So either that's going to be delayed or it's going to happen during that time. And I may, or we don't know where it's going to be. We can only conjecture that location, right, where this thing might happen.
Right.
So that's going to be key as well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And I'll be back later today on another show. So stay tuned to my Telegram channel to get the data as to where I am at. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.